The following podcast is a mass media production.
Hey, this is Chad Namiro.
And I'm Kelley Namiro. Welcome to the Balancing Chaos podcast,
A lifestyle podcast where we will interview guests about wellness, business, and just about everything in between.
Our goal is to help you develop a lifestyle that promotes health, wholeness, and success. Through our conversations, we hope to inspire you to live a beautiful, full, and joyful life as you navigate balancing the chaos.
We hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Balancing Chaos podcast. Today, this week, we have a very special guest, Dr. Jason Diamond, who my wife just adores. And after the podcast, I'm thinking about maybe going in for something myself.
Dr. Jason Diamond is a board-certified facial plastic surgeon. He is located in Beverly Hills. He is seriously the top of his field. He's incredible. I see him probably every 6 months for a little Botox, and I wouldn't trust anyone else. He's literally the best. And I think that seeing facial plastic surgeons for those types of things is a really good idea in general, because they just know the symmetry of your face better, and they can really adjust and tweak things to make it look absolutely perfect. But in today's episode, we talk about what are the most popular procedures? What does downtime look like? What are you going to do if you want to get a surgery, but you're not quite ready to commit yet? Like all of those things. Plus we talk about how he built his business in LA, some of his celebrity clients. We get into it all. So we hope you guys enjoy the episode.
Looking for the trusted resource for luxury Las Vegas real estate? The Ivan Share Group is the expert in the Las Vegas luxury real estate market, specializing in high-end homes and luxury high-rise properties. The Ivan Share Group is a dynamic team of leading real estate experts dedicated to client satisfaction. Their extensive expertise in Las Vegas and Henderson allows them to help luxury homebuyers find their dream homes no matter what their needs are. They're dedicated to helping you buy, sell, or invest. Contact Ivan and his team directly at 702-315-0223 or visit www.isluxury.com to learn what they do differently. The Ivan Share Group is luxury and your trusted resource for luxury Las Vegas real estate.
Hey, you guys, we are here today with Dr. Diamond. He is the most amazing plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills, but he's world renowned. He travels all over the world to see the most celebrity, top-notch clients. And I am lucky enough to have been able to be under his care and see him for a couple of different things, including my book. I go back there and see him every, 6 months? 3 or 4 or 6 months, I don't know. And we do Botox, do it in my forehead, get rid of those wrinkles, get rid of the heavy masseters in my jawline. But he's amazing, and we're gonna dive into a ton of questions, a ton of listener questions today. So Dr. Diamond, for anyone who doesn't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started with your practice? Because I know that whole story, but it's a pretty cool one to tell. So
I'm a facial plastic surgeon. I do nothing but facial work from neck and above. And I got started when I finished my residency. I came out to LA and I did my own sort of fellowship. So the normal track for somebody trying to get into this business is they'll finish a residency either in, head and neck surgery or general plastic surgery. They'll do a residency, which is, you're working with supervisors and you're taking care of many different aspects of that part of the body you're doing your residency in. But cosmetics is a very, very tiny part of a residency program. So most people who want to be at the top of the game will then go out and do what's called a fellowship, focusing on the cosmetic aspect of whatever part of the body they are trying to learn. So most people will go do a fellowship where they spend a year or 6 months with somebody, one particular person, and they learn the kind of tricks of the trade, or they learn the finer points of the craft. I decided I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to learn from one person, because I knew there were a million different techniques out there. So I came out to LA and I didn't do a formal fellowship. I ended up just sort of spending time with many, many different people. So it was where most of my colleagues and friends spent 1 year learning from one surgeon. I spent 2 years learning from about 60 surgeons. And so I learned basically everything that I could get my brain around. I learned every technique there was for different aspects of the face. So for example, I wanted to learn facial implants, let's say. So I found the two guys who created the field, and I studied facial implants with them: cheek implants, chin implants, jaw implants. And that's a totally different guy than the well-known facelift expert. I wanted to learn facelift, so I spent time with the best facelift experts. I wanted to learn rhinoplasties. I spent time with the best rhinoplasty experts. So that's how I did it. I did that for 2 years. I wasn't making a penny. I basically was living out of my car, essentially, living in a friend's basement, really. And but I was able to spend that 2 years learning all the best techniques there were, so that when I came out and when I finally decided to start practice, I knew, like, I already knew I knew exactly what to do, and I didn't really have to take many bumps along the way. No, I'm still learning. Everybody's, the day I stopped learning is the day I stopped practicing. We're always learning, but my learning curve was so advanced because I'd seen the best guys do the best things. And so that's how I started my practice and how my career got started.
Yeah, I think that's so awesome to be able to have learned from so many different people, and that's why you're the best. And then you were on a TV show, right? Is that when you got started? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So when I think I've been in practice for about 2 years at the time. A TV show called Dr. 90210 came out on the E channel, and it was this like juggernaut show. I mean, it generated so much interest. The name was sexy, Dr. 90210. No one had really seen the behind the scenes lifestyle of the surgeons. There were only 2 other shows out that were popular up to that point. One was called Extreme Makeover. One was called The Swan. They were all based on the patient, nothing about the doctors. And they were both short-lived, although they were popular, but short-lived. So Dr. 90210 came out, and it ran its first season. I wasn't a part of it, but it was this huge success. So they got picked up for a second season after the success of the first, and they tripled their airtime. So they went from 8 half-hour episodes to 13 one-hour episodes. So they more than tripled their airtime. And so they needed to add people. And so they were a couple roles they were looking for. A guy named Robert Ray started the show. It was his idea, and he was the main guy that was featured season 1. Season 2, they wanted a woman. They got Linda Lee, who's a good friend of mine. And then they wanted like the hotshot up and comer, and they interviewed 20 different people for that. And they liked me for that spot. They just came around, and they knew who all the potential candidates were. They spent a day with me, and they said, "We want you to do this," and they offered it to me.
And they just profiled patients before and after the procedure, and documented everything that went into it and all that. Is that kind of the gist of the show?
That was the gist of the show, and the difference between that and some of the other shows was that this really went home. They went home with the patient. They showed the stressors that those patients were dealing with and the decisions they had to make. So they went behind the scenes with the patient, but also, and then they focused on the surgery, all the technical aspects, which the other shows did. But they also showed the surgeons, and they showed us go home and what we deal with. And so it was a great idea. It was a great show. And the interesting thing about it was when I started this, I learned from the forefathers pretty much of this specialty. And these are old school guys, these are real purists. And the saying was, you do not advertise in plastic surgery. And those that advertise are like, or even promote themselves in any way would be the equivalent of like an ambulance chasing lawyer. It was very, very frowned upon. Like, you were supposed to let your work talk for itself and never even say a word about yourself. And so a lot of people told me, don't do this show, don't do it. I heard that not from my nurse, who had been in the business for 20 years before me, from my wife, from my anesthesiologist who'd been in the business for years, from my mentors. And so I was very torn about doing the show. But the reason I wanted to do is because I saw what was out there before, and I knew I had the best techniques known to man. I knew that for a fact, and I knew I could show the best results that were ever seen. I knew my techniques were unparalleled, and I knew the results would be unparalleled. So I waited out, and I said, you know what, it's gonna be worth it to show this. And I did. And it was well worth it. Not only for me, I got emails every day from plastic surgeons around the country saying, thank you so much for showing these types of results and what's possible. My practice has exploded. I got these emails all the time from people around the country. So it was great.
So how many years has that been since you've done that, now that you've built the Diamond Institute, like to what it is now? Because now you have like patients literally marketing your business for you. They come into your office and they're on their Instagram. Like, I mean, I'm one of them, but.
Well, I'm very, very blessed and fortunate to have the best patient. I'll put my patient population up against anybody's as far as just the classiness and the just the beautiful nature of these people, personality wise, everything. I'm very fortunate to have that patient population. So I don't take that for granted. I'm very honored to have that and privileged to have that. We started that, I think that show 90210, I think it was on 2003, 2004, something like that. So yeah, that's basically when I always say we were sort of part of the cosmetic surgery revolution, meaning that like I really believe we brought this mainstream, because before we did this show, I think middle America thought that plastic surgery was just for rich New York and LA housewives. Like, I really think that's what people thought of. They thought of celebrities and rich LA, New York. That's what people thought of. And we really, I think, brought it mainstream, where people in middle America and in Riverside and wherever said, you know what, I can go do this. This isn't just for Michael Jackson and like people like that. This is like something that really can help me with my self-esteem. So we really brought it mainstream, I think. That was about 2003, 2004.
I love that. And now how it's evolved into this thing, like I was saying with your patients and them putting it on their Instagram, it's like the stigma of plastic surgery is taken away too. So you feel more comfortable doing something for yourself that's going to make you feel better and more confident in your body. So with that said, I'm really curious, and I think a lot of our listeners would be too, as to what I think I might know when it comes to non-surgical, what your most popular procedure, but when it comes to surgical and non-surgical, what are your most popular procedures that you do?
I would say, okay, yes. So let me just start by saying this. What I tell everybody is I am a facial plastic surgeon. I built my career and my reputation based on my facelift results, my facial rejuvenation results, okay, my surgical results. That's how I built my reputation and built this place. And it was based on that success that we developed the non-surgical component to the practice, which now has become a major love of mine, and it's become one of the popular ones out there. And I don't say that, I take that very seriously. I'm very honored by that. I don't take it for granted. And I don't tell you that to tell you how great I am. I tell you that to tell you that I do a lot of both surgical and non-surgical procedures. I do a ton of both, and I love them both differently. So let's take the non-surgical. The probably the most popular non-surgical procedure I do would be called diamond facial sculpting. And that is my version of lifting and sculpting a face non-surgically. And it was born from my surgical procedures that I do that not many people do, and that is customization of facial implants. So I customize implants. When people need cheek implants, jaw implants, chin implants, I create them versus just opening them up out of the package. There's only a few of us really in the world who do that, but I create them. I'm shaping implants all day long. And so based on me creating these implants and understanding what the projections and the contours and the angles are supposed to be, it one day struck me like a ton of bricks in surgery. I can replicate this non-surgically. And this is completely different than the standard filler technique that, is done out there in the community. And as a matter of fact, even the name, if you hear the name, what's the name? What do even the companies, what does even Allergan call their fillers? They call them dermal fillers. You go to Google, it's dermal fillers. Well, I'm not in the dermis. I'm doing completely differently than the standard way that fillers are done. And so I'm shaping a face, I'm contouring it, I'm creating symmetry, balance, and that's facial sculpting. That's probably the most common thing non-surgically that I do. A close second would be the Insta Facial, which is my version of it's the technique that we've created for skin rejuvenation in a non-surgical way, in a no downtime way. And that's as a facial specialist, I have always had a major focus not only on the structure of the face, but on the skin as well. They go hand in hand, and it's something that's lost. I think a lot of surgeons kind of send skin treatments out to other specialties, but I've always found it extremely important. So having a major focus on the skin as well, I've come up with a procedure over the years called the Insta Facial. And that's probably a close second most common thing that I do in the office.
Okay. And what is the Insta Facial? We have to come see you to know.
So the Insta Facial, I've taken a holistic view to treating the skin and to treating the face. It is a bioregenerative technique. We start with a laser. And what laser, it depends. But I'm preparing the skin with a laser depending on what your particular situation calls for. And then we take your blood, we turn it into plasma, which is the component of the blood that's got the proteins and growth factors, platelets, all the nutrient-rich parts of the blood. And then I will inject that underneath the skin into the subcutaneous tissue. I'll inject it, and then we'll lay it on the skin, and we'll penetrate it in to the right depth with needles, and then we'll put a micronized collagen mask on and let it all soothe in. So it's a multiple combination approach. But it's, I've done everything for the skin, and I've seen everything. And this is just it's just an amazing treatment with almost no downtime. I mean, you might be red for 2 hours to 12 hours, but by the next day you're out, you can be out and looking great. And not only does it make you look great, but it's preventative and it's bioregenerative, meaning it stimulates your body to do some of its own healing and its own maintenance. It maintains elasticity. So it's definitely a close second, I'd say, to facial sculpting as far as the most popular in-office things that we do.
I imagine that procedure is probably pretty appealing for men as well, right? Who don't necessarily want to commit to a full surgical treatment, but, want to look a bit younger. They maybe, myself, I've never done anything like that. You see that more so with men? I
have a ton of men who come in for both facial sculpting and the Insta Facial.
Yeah.
I do them both on myself as well. So like I'm a consumer as well.
Testimonial.
Love it.
So I have a couple of questions, and I know Chad wants some questions about how you built your business, but just based on what we were just talking about, okay, with the diamond facial sculpting and the instant facial, how often do you have to come in for diamond facial sculpting? If someone wasn't coming to you and they wanted to go get, and I know the way you do filler is different than someone else, but how often do people have to do stuff like that? And then how often do you have to do the Insta Facial to see results?
So for the facial sculpting, I'd say there's a range, right? People's metabolism will determine how quickly they metabolize the products that we use. And I use a combination of products, but I say in general, facial sculpting will last on average about 9 months. I tell people about 9 months to a year. I've seen it last a year and a half, even close to 2 years. And I've seen it fade away in, 6-7 months, but most people around 9 to 12 months. The Insta Facial is more variable. The Insta Facial is something that you can do as frequently, literally as every month. And I have a lot of people who are making a living with their appearance, literally do it every month. It's totally safe to do that. And then I have people come in 3 times a year for it, depending on their social obligations and their work obligations and things like that. So we tell most people, you probably want, when you get started, you probably want to do at least a few Insta Facials a month if you can, to get like a base built up. But then after that, you do when you feel, you'll know when you feel like your skin needs a little boost, and and that's the thing. We don't even have to tell people. They knock down our door. They know when they're ready. They come in when they're ready. Yeah.
Last question with regards to like procedures on this part is, what is the most popular surgical procedure that you do? And I know that when you look at a face, you can see immediately, like you just have the eye to, and I think it's partly a gift and partly, you've been doing this for so long, you can see if there's any asymmetries, but can you tell our listeners also what makes someone like quote unquote beautiful when people are looking for that, when they come in, they're like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I need something.
So I'd say the most common surgical procedure I do, I call the Diamond Facial Rejuvenation, which is a 360-degree approach to the face. It goes, I mean, we look at from everything to the hairline all the way down to the neck, and that might include the thickness of your eyebrows. It might include the contour to your cheeks. It might include the lift to your nose. I mean, I just look at the entire face, and the face is like fingerprints. Every single one is unique and different, and so there's really no one answer as to what somebody's going to need to make them look their best. It's really a matter of taking somebody's features and maximizing those features to their face. That's for me. That's what most people want from me. Every now and then somebody wants to look like somebody different, and I usually will refer that to somebody else. But for me, it's about taking somebody's features, customizing implants for them, balancing different parts of the face, whatever is required for that person. So I wish there was one answer I could give you, but there's not.
No, that's super helpful. Is there a standard in terms of like, I have like upside down triangle or like different symmetries, like of what makes someone beautiful? Is that like?
There have been people who have published articles on the golden ratio and the upside down triangle, all those things, and those are theoretical.
Yeah,
I guess you can see those things in nature, but in practically speaking, in reality, to do what we're doing, I don't put up the golden ratio mask on you, and I don't do it. It's not really practical or appropriate. So it's really an artistic judgment. And how do I know what's going to look the best? Again, it's one foot is steeped in artistry and the other in science, and you're trying to combine them to the best that we can.
On the science theme, clearly you're as successful as you are because of you've pioneered several techniques, but how much medicine in general has drastically improved, even more so in the past like 5-10 years and perhaps the 20 before that. How much has changed in your field, and how has that given you as far as your ability to do more with patients and create more differences?
Yeah, that's a good question. People ask that all the time. I think the biggest improvements in the science would be along the lines of the bioregenerative treatments. You hear stem cells and things of that nature. I think that world and the things that I'm very involved in is probably the most significant advancements we've had over the past 20, 30 years, right? And I'm doing a lot of those types of things. So that falls more into the non-surgical realm, though. As far as surgery goes, the reality is there have been improvements in certain types of sutures and certain types of instruments, but the actual artistry and technique of a surgical procedure, it's like playing an instrument. I mean, just the more you do it, the better you get at it, the more refined you get at it. It's just a matter of doing thousands of them and understanding what's going on while you're in there and being delicate with the tissue. So it's not like there's some magic laser now that does everything for you. That doesn't exist. And people always ask about that. And the reality is I don't even see anything on the horizon that's going to change the way we do surgery. I just don't see that for any time in the near future.
So you don't see anything like the Da Vinci machine making it into your field, which is robotic arms or anything of that nature?
I do not. And the reason those things are very helpful for those types of surgeries, because those are deep surgeries. Now you can make little incisions and get in there deep and use those robots, but you don't need that for facial surgery. We're very superficial. We're right under the skin. And so we don't need that kind of thing. It's here. We'd rather use our hands and, feel it and move it delicately,
Yeah. It's like an art. From a male's perspective, I don't suffer from hair loss. I'm one of the lucky ones, but I think that's what a lot of males struggle with. And so I'd love to hear some of what you do in that field and how you can not only help men who've lost hair, but potentially prevent it when they're starting to.
Yeah. So as far as people who've already lost, there's several things we do. We do the highest level of hair transplants, where we take hair out from the back of the head and we will transplant it in and create, whatever kind of contour that we agree upon. And that's appropriate for many, many people. And we do a lot of that. We'll also lower a hairline. A lot of people have receding hairlines where their hair is thick, but their hairline's receding. We can actually do a hairline lowering procedure where we kind of do a surgical procedure and pull the hairline forward and actually lower it up to a couple centimeters. And that little bit can make a big difference. So there are surgical procedures that we do that are excellent procedures. As far as prevention and non-surgical treatments, that's along the lines of the bioregenerative treatments that I was referring to previously. So over the past probably 6 or 7 years, we've had a lot of success using a person's own plasma, taking their blood out and creating plasma, and then adding a few special proteins to it and injecting it back in. That I've done it on myself. That has been one of the most popular non-surgical treatments for hair loss over the past probably 6 or 7 years, up until about a year ago, when like a latest and greatest type of version of this has gained momentum and shown some real success, and that's called Exosome Therapy. And exosome, it's very similar to using somebody's blood. It's a similar process. It's these signaling molecules. It's the way to think about it. It's almost like the active component of using your plasma, and we take that, we inject that in, and that shows the most recent literature on that shows that it's one time versus plasma injections, which can be multiple treatments. This is a one-time treatment, and upwards of 90% of people see improvement after you give it 6 months. After 6 months, up to 90% of people see improvement. So it can be very effective for many people. And so, we do a lot of that too. And I wouldn't hesitate to do that if I needed it for myself or a friend or a family member.
So you're almost retraining your hair follicles to grow naturally, in a sense?
Correct.
Wow.
Quickly pausing this episode of the show to let you know that my private one-on-one coaching container is now open. Over the course of 2021, I'm only going to be working with a small, select group of women to help them return to feeling like they're at home in their bodies, to help them lose resistant weight, to feel less anxious and more energized. My one-on-one coaching is truly for you if you're tired of feeling depleted, overwhelmed, bloated, or like you're just not enough. There's no magic pill or cleanse or detox that's going to work. You are really ready to make that commitment to yourself and create the habits that will lead you to hormonal balance and vibrant health. I'm here to help you get to the root cause and create meaningful change. If you're feeling called to work with me so that you can finally feel at home in your body, head to the link in the show notes to learn more. So I know that you see a lot of repeat clients, like whether they're coming in for one surgical procedure and then another because they trust you, because they've gotten the results that they want, or if they're coming back for, facial sculpting over and over again, whatever it is. Have you ever gotten to a point, and this is just a very, I don't know if you want to answer this question, but have you ever gotten to a point where you had to tell someone no, like they just are going too crazy?
So I've told many people no. There are many people who come in and they have an unrealistic expectation, or they have come from somewhere else and they're way overdone. I tell many people no. As far as my own people who come back to me, as you know, I'm very conservative with the things that I do. And so I don't really see too many people of my own who are coming back to me for their maintenance who look overdone. I mean, I just don't see that happen where I have to say stop. Now, because I will never agree to do something that's not going to look good in the first place. Now, if they're coming back in an unreasonable amount of time and they're saying they want it bigger, and all of a sudden I'm like, I will say no. I'll say no. Like I won't let them get to a point where it looks odd. But there are on very infrequent occasions I have to do that with my own patients, but it's very few and far between.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, you see those horror stories on
they're
TV shows.
They're your patients, I guess, are your biggest your walking advertisement. So it's definitely
which kind of leads me into my next question around your clientele. You go on your Instagram and there's famous actresses, artists, etc.
Chrissy Teigen, the
Kardashians.
Yeah.
How did you build that business, and when did you start gravitating more towards, that type of clientele. And then, you talked a bit in the beginning about marketing, and I think you do an excellent job from my perspective marketing that. But I'm assuming a lot of it comes just from word of mouth and clearly being at the top of your field. So interested to hear about that.
Yeah. So what I'd say to that is, like I had described to you earlier, I started my career, I built my reputation as a surgeon, right? And I developed the non-surgical procedures later. I developed them, 10 years after once I really developed my surgical practice and we developed a reputation that people trusted me with their faces. That's when we developed the non-surgical practice. What I found was, it didn't take me long in practice to get some high profile people. And I had a pretty heavy, high profile clientele, well before I started the non-surgical practice. But what I found was that surgically speaking, people aren't readily willing to share what they've done with people. Surgery is still much more quiet and hush hush. Whereas non-surgical procedures, people are so happy to go tell everybody and put it out there for their social media and their friends and all those things. So I would say it was really once I had that clientele for a long, long time, but once I really started doing the non-surgical procedures, when people started talking about it, you understand? So that's really where all of a sudden it became popular knowledge that these people were coming to me when they, and again, I never ask anybody to post anything. They readily and willingly posted on their own because people like to share these types of things. But I'd say it was after we really developed the non-surgical practices when that became well known that I was taking care of these people, and when it, kind of mushroom clouded.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure social media didn't hurt with everyone just being much more open about their lives and what they're up to. And yeah, I mean, you scroll through your Instagram and you have very happy patients who speak very highly of you. So it's wonderful to see.
When it comes to the non-surgical stuff, just to go back to that really quickly, is that a good way to say you wanted to do like something like cheek implants or a chin implant, or you feel like your nose is too small or too big? Is that a good way to test out what results you might get from doing a surgical procedure?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, facial sculpting is an excellent way to test out what an implant might do. And a non-surgical rhinoplasty is an excellent way for many people to test out what a rhinoplasty would do. There are many things that I can replicate non-surgically and make the non-surgical results look exactly the same as the surgical results. There are many situations where that is the case, and I recommend that for many people. Why don't we just test this out if you're not sure? We give people that option. There are many procedures where that is not the case. There's many. The most common big one would be like a lax neck, a turkey neck. You cannot non-surgically replicate a facelift result. So that I can't. But a chin implant, projecting the chin, contouring the cheeks, projecting and lifting the nose, lip contours, many things I can replicate non-surgically. And many people say, oh yeah, let me do this and live with it for 6 months and make sure I love it, and then I'll do the surgery. So yeah, many people do choose that option, and I have to guide them as to whether this is going to be a real life example of what the surgery will look like or not.
So you just said the turkey neck thing, so I have to ask this. If someone who I've seen so many people on Insta Kybella to the chin, is that not a good idea? Is that a bad idea?
Yeah, it's one of the things that really I feel very strongly about, and I talk about it readily, and I don't ever mean to hurt anybody's feelings or, affect people who are performing that. But what does Kybella do? I'll ask that, and this is a rhetorical question. But do you know what Kybella does?
It dissolves fat, right?
Correct. It dissolves fat. Okay, so I can tell you that there's not one of us here, including the other people who we started this consult with, who have any fat under their chin, right? Some of us may have a little laxity, and I'm 50 now, I'm developing a little laxity here, but none of us have any fat. But so the most common mistake somebody will make is, well, let's just inject a little Kybella if I feel a little laxity and it'll melt fat. The biggest mistake is very few people have excess fat under here. I mean, if you're obese people who have weight problems, yes, have excess fat here. but very few people that I see in my daily practice, and I see I see, thousands of people a year, very few people have excess fat here. But they may have laxity here in shape they don't like, but that shape is due to a weak bony structure. It's due to glandular tissue. It's due to muscle thickness. It's due to anatomical relationships. So the point is, I have seen Kybella so overdone at these med spas and at these places where a provider doesn't even understand what they're treating. They'll look at you and they'll say, and you might say, oh, I wish I was tighter. And I guarantee you right now, you could leave this podcast right now and you could find 10 different places, say, oh yeah, let's just inject a little Kybella in there. They will make you worse. They will create damage. They will destroy your anatomy. Okay. And you'll find 10 people one block from you right now who would do it for you. And that's my problem with it. So are there circumstances where fat melting is appropriate in here? Yes, for people who have fat accumulation. But the biggest misconception I see as a facial and neck expert, the biggest misconception I see is people come in and say, Doc, I have extra fat here. No, you don't. No, you really don't. Yeah. Most people don't. And so there are many ways to tighten that area up, but Kybella, on the right person, it may be fine. But now, okay, so let's take the right person now. Let's say somebody who has a weight problem, who has an accumulation of fat there. Let's take that person. Okay. If you're going to do Kybella injections, that's going to require an injection every a week for so one injection a month for 5 months, right? So you're going to come in, you're going to do an injection. Now, when you do that injection, people have these very brisk swelling response where they look like a bullfrog for up to 2 weeks. So you get this major inflammatory component response here, major inflammation for up to 2 weeks. And then it will settle down, and for 2 weeks, you'll be okay. Then guess what? After that 2 weeks, you got to go in and do it again. And so for 2 weeks, you're like a bullfrog. You settle down, you're okay for 2 weeks. You got to do that 5 times, okay? And that's an indiscriminate melting of the fat. It's just the chemicals chewing away whatever it wants to chew away. Versus if you are somebody who has an accumulation of fat, doing liposuction by hand, where it takes 20 minutes under local anesthesia, you wear a wrap for 3 days, and then you look great in 5 or 6 days and you're done. And the surgeon, if they're skilled and know what they're doing, has removed just the right amount of fat, not too much. So if you find the right person, liposuction is such a far superior, precise, safe technique that I would never even consider doing it any other way. You have to leave some fat on the skin. If you don't, your skin will get crepey and it will sag. And and I can say this because this was a story on E, and she posted Kelty Knight, who's a host of one of the Lady Gang. We profiled her story where she had Kybella inappropriately. She didn't have one drop of fat there, but she didn't like the contour, and somebody did Kybella, and we fixed it surgically. And again, I'm talking about this because she aired it publicly. But that kind of thing happens all the time where people's necks get destroyed by that stuff.
That is insane. Yeah. And I'm really grateful that you talked about this, because I've seen people that are on Instagram, like talking about their Kybella stories and talking about like the bullfrog experience. And I'm just like, oh, does not cringeworthy. So I'm really glad that you talked about that. Which leads me into the next question. Like, if someone is looking for a professional injector, like I would only see you because I trust you, but like what if someone is not in Beverly Hills or can't travel, what should they look for? Not just in an injector, but also if they want to get surgery done, if they're looking for a plastic surgeon.
Yeah, and so that's a great question. There are really, if you're looking for surgery on your face, there's only 2 specialties that I would consider, and that is a board-certified facial plastic surgeon or a board-certified plastic surgeon. Those are 2 different specialties. Facial plastic surgery and plastic surgery are 2 completely different routes of school, of residency, but they're both fully qualified and trained to operate on your face. And I wouldn't go anywhere else. I'd make sure board certified, and that's there are many other things that sound like those 2, and I don't want to name names and say, but they sound like, but they're not. So it can't be a variation. It can't be a variation of that. It's got to be a board certified facial plastic surgeon in those order, or a board certified plastic surgeon in that order. And if there's another word in there or another order, then that's not it. Okay. So things sound the same, but they're not.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's super helpful. And I think that that's definitely going to save some people a lot of heartache on the back end when they know that they're going to get someone who can take good care of them.
Yeah. Is there a lot more than there was, say, 5-10 years ago of these med spas and maybe practices that, I don't want to make any assumptions, but maybe are making decisions that they don't have the complete knowledge on, or maybe it's more driven by revenue?
I don't really know if there are more. And again, I'm not here to throw stones at med spas. They serve a good purpose and people are happy with them most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, when people are doing irreversible things, it needs to be a plastic surgeon. It needs to be a facial expert, either a facial plastic surgeon or a plastic surgeon, to determine if you have extra fat and need it melted. Like that, I would start there. So like I wouldn't go to a med spa to figure that out. I'd make sure you go. And then if you figured it out and that doctor has said, yeah, you have extra fat, and they're going to charge you whatever, you want to save money and go to the med, then fine, you can, that would be, I guess I consider that somewhat acceptable. Okay, but to answer your question, so I'm not throwing stones at med spas, but are there more out there? They seem to pop up every day, but I don't keep tabs on which ones come and go. I think they probably come and go quite a bit, but I don't really know.
So going back to that person that we were like, that theoretical person who is looking for a plastic surgeon, and they find someone they like, or they come to see you, all surgeries I'm sure different in terms of downtime, but is there like generally something that someone could expect if they're going to go under the knife in terms of like, okay, you're not going to be able to like see the world or go on Zoom with your video on for like 2 weeks, 6 weeks?
So that totally depends on what we do. I do many surgical procedures where you could go on Zoom in 3 days, 3-4 days. And then there are surgical procedures.
What's like an example of something like that?
So I help pioneer a technique we call the minimally invasive neck lift. And that is a way of, so if any of us, the three of us right now, said we want our neck tightened, I would do a minimally invasive neck lift on us. That's not Kybella, it's not liposuction. It's a way we have of suspending the muscles under the chin without any scars. We have a way of crocheting this like support system underneath. And that can look good literally in 3 or 4 days. There's very, very little downtime with that. You could be on Zoom in no later than 6 days, let's say. So there are procedures like that are very, brow lift, a little mini brow lift. I can have you looking good in 5 days with a mini brow lift. Okay, there are certain procedures where you can look really, really good, really quick. Then there are procedures that take longer to heal. A nose will usually take 10 days, probably 10 days before you're comfortable with the swelling that's settled down. A facelift and a more full diamond facial rejuvenation might take you 2 to 3 weeks before you want to be on a Zoom. So it just depends on what we're doing.
Okay. That's super helpful. And when you are like, if you say you did the diamond facial rejuvenation and you did something like that where you did your whole face, are you completely out of commission where you can't, like, you're kind of like hanging out in bed and just resting, or can you get up and walk around and do normal stuff around the house?
Well, the great thing about facial surgery, one of the reasons it is so safe, is because we want you up out of bed the next day. I don't want you laying in bed. Oh. So one of the biggest risks of body surgery, which I don't do, would be from people laying in bed all day for a week after. And one of the most significant risks, although those are very safe surgeries too, but their most significant risk would be a DVT, a blood clot, which turns into a pulmonary embolism. And that happens to people who sit and do nothing. Again, those surgeries are very safe and those doctors guide those patients through it, but those patients do have to lay in bed for a long time. So those risks are much higher. With facial surgery, we don't want you laying in bed. We want you walking around the next day. I don't want you doing chores and I don't want you doing exercise, but I do want you to walk to the kitchen and walk your side. I don't want you laying, I want you to walk around the house at least several times a day. And so, and that makes facial surgery very safe. And so we don't want you, and in general, as a blanket statement, facial surgery is typically not very sensitive. It's typically not very painful. Of course, there are outliers and there are people who have a rough week from time to time, but most people are like, it just didn't hurt that much. Just uncomfortable. It didn't hurt that much.
That's awesome. I love it. So we talked about how you built your career. You were on an incredible TV show. Now you travel the world seeing people all over. Where do you see your career going in the next like 5 to 10 years? Is there another TV show? Are you going to open a practice somewhere else? What's up for Dr. Diamond?
Create a line of products. I was interested in this question too.
Yeah, well, we, as I mentioned, I take a holistic approach to this specialty, and the skin is an extremely important part of making the face look its best. And given that I'm so interested and involved in the bioregenerative components of skin, I am working on something very significant that I'm very excited about in that world for skincare line. So we are working on that, and
Awesome.
and so that's definitely coming. That's definitely coming soon. So that I'm really, really excited about. As far as like opening up other branches, we as you may or may not know, I do travel to different places and open up like pop-up type of practices. So I go to New York every 3 or 4 months. I'm going to be going to New York in 6 weeks. We are going to be going to Texas, and so we're gonna do. I'm very excited to go there. So I love that component to my practice. It is so much fun, and I get to, and I have a lot of those people flying here, but it's really fun to go see them in their hometown and spend time in other cities. I do love doing that, but I don't want to spread myself too thin. There's only one of me, so I gotta kind of see how it all goes. But it's really exciting that I have the opportunity to even think about it and try it. So I don't know what's coming down the road. We get called about TV opportunities every day, and I'm not in the mood to do a TV show right now, right this second. It would have to be really, really right for me. So I don't know. I love doing what I do. If I never left this office and just sat here and did facial sculpting today and facial rejuvenation tomorrow, I'll die a happy man. I'll be so excited just to do that. But these extra opportunities, these things are fun and exciting. And I do look forward to continuing to see where we can take it.
I love that. And I know you have 2 boys, so, travel is hard too. Like, you have a family at home, so I totally get that. But I love that people in other cities and other places have the opportunity to see you through those pop-ups. I think that's really cool. That you do that. Is there some time left for you to do a couple of quickfire questions with us? We like to ask our guests like the same questions at the end of the show. All right. So first, what's your morning routine?
So I get up usually about the same time every morning, or usually around 6. I get up, I have a cup of black coffee and drink a bottle of water, take my resveratrol, my NMN, my vitamin D, and my vitamin B12. Then I go downstairs and I exercise. And I will usually start with cardio, 20, 30 minutes, and then I'll do some like course, either Pilates or yoga, whatever I feel like that day.
I love it.
Add some light weights to whatever. I do about an hour and a half workout in the morning, come up, take a shower, get to work. And if this is a non-surgery day, by the way, where we usually start about 9 a.m. and then get to work by 9 and then work all day. And through the pandemic, we've been here till 9 o'clock every night. We're trying to get out earlier these days, so I go spend more time with the kids. So now I'm trying to get home by 6:30 or 7, and then I'll get home and I'll go outside with the boys and hang out with them outside, and come in, eat dinner, do some breathing exercises and some meditation, go to bed.
Love it.
I love it.
Have you been as busy or busier during the pandemic? Because I'm in e-commerce, business has exploded for me, but I'm always interested to see whose verticals have gone up and down during the months.
It's been extremely busy throughout the pandemic. Extremely. It's one of the busiest runs we've had. I mean, the past year since we reopened, we shut down like everybody else March 22nd to May 1st. It was about a 6-week span. But May 1st, when they said we can get back to work, I mean, I haven't left the office before 9 o'clock any given night, and Saturdays and Sundays too. I mean, it's been so busy. Yeah.
Wow, oh my gosh, that's
awesome.
amazing.
Back to the questions. This is my wife's. What is the best thing you've eaten this week?
The best thing?
Yep.
As in the best tasting or the healthiest, or?
Probably best tasting.
Yeah,
she might be interested in the most healthy.
Best tasting.
I found one of my favorite restaurants now. I guess I'll give a plug, not unexpectedly, but it's a place. It's a very high-end shabu place in Beverly Hills that I just discovered, and It's called IMA, I-M-A. Now I hope people don't flood to it so I can't get my reservations. No, I'm just kidding. But it is like, oh my God, it's amazing because I love that thin sliced grade A5 Wagyu beef, and it's incredible. So it's just like as much of that stuff as you want, all these little variations on it. So I had that Saturday night. It was amazing. Like just
they
amazing.
cook it all on like a stone. Like
they have,
okay.
yeah. So they do it in the boiling water. They come over and they just it takes 2 little strokes in the water, and then it's ready to go. And the dipping sauce that they have, and they have this raw egg you dip it in. I mean, it is not raw egg, egg yolk. You dip in this egg yolk. It's incredible. That's the best thing I've eaten in a long, long time.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that you meditate. Like you said, you meditate at night. And so this question is a little bit woo-woo, but if you were a color, what color would you be?
I'd say blue.
Yeah. Your scrubs.
Got
there you
blue
go.
on.
Yeah, my scrubs, my eyes, it's soothing. Yeah.
I like
it. What do you keep on your nightstand?
My nightstand?
Any books?
I do keep some books, but the thing is, it's weird. I don't do anything in my, I don't lay in my bed. Like I watch my TV or read, not in bed. I want to get to bed and just go to sleep. So I don't fiddle around in bed, like I do my reading and whatever I'm doing on the couch downstairs. And then when I'm ready to go to bed, I just go upstairs and plop right down and turn off the lights, and that's it. So not that much, actually.
Yeah. We've long discussed kicking the TV out of the bedroom. I think we both want to, but I don't know if we have
necessary.
the strength.
Yeah, it's definitely necessary.
Yeah.
Okay. So our show is called Balancing Chaos, and I know you juggle. So give our listeners your best tip for balancing the chaos of life.
Yeah, well, so for me, my best tip is structure. I thrive in structure. I need structure. I always have, even in college when things got stressful, even in residency, whatever. If I have a schedule that I can stick to that schedule, it kind of takes all the stress away because you know what you're doing next. You can focus on that and give it 100%, whatever it is that you're doing at that time. And so for me, I'd say having a rigid schedule for me is how I navigate the chaos and the craziness, and it works best for me. Part of that schedule will be working out, we'll be meditating, we'll be eating healthy, like trying to live as healthy as I can. But it all starts with a good strict schedule.
Yeah, I put everything in the calendar. I could not agree with you more. Thank you so much, Dr. Diamond. This has been amazing. We're so grateful to you for your time. If everyone wants to find you, they can find you on Instagram. But if someone wanted to book a consultation or something like that, did they just call your office? How does that work?
Yeah, they just call the office. Just call the office number and they'll get you in.
All right.
Great.
Amazing. You're the best.
Our New York friends, 6 weeks.
6
you heard
weeks.
it here first.
6 weeks.
You're the best. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thanks,
Diamond.
Doctor.
We appreciate you.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's my
so
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. And thanks for all the kind words. I really appreciate that.
Hey, thanks for listening.
Please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also connect with us on social media at Wellness by Kelley. Drop us a DM for who you want to hear from.